She was running from a monster. New city, new name, new life. All she had to do was stay invisible. But when she accidentally called the mafia boss baby while serving him drinks, everything changed. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He leaned in, eyes burning into hers, and whispered, "Say it again, but slower." That slip of the tongue pulled her into a world of danger, obsession, and a past she couldn't outrun. Because the man she called baby wasn't just powerful. He was the only one dangerous enough to destroy the nightmare hunting her. Want to know what happens when Sharon's dark past finally catches up to her? Will Edward's protection be enough? Or will his world consume her completely? Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of this heart-pounding romance. Drop A in the comments if you're already hooked. 4 months. That's how long Sharon Cooper survived by erasing herself. A fake name on her work badge. A studio apartment with locks on every door. A job where she kept her head down, her voice quiet, and her past buried so deep, even she tried to forget it existed. Until the night, everything unraveled. Diamond Heights wasn't just any lounge. It was where the city's elite came to play. Sharon had perfected her routine. Serve drinks, avoid eye contact, collect tips, go home. Simple, safe. But when her manager dragged her into the VIP section because they were short-staffed, Sharon's carefully built fortress began to crack. The man sitting at the center table radiated danger. Edward Allen. Everyone knew the name. Whispers followed him like shadows. The mafia boss who controlled half the city's underground, whose word was law, whose enemies simply disappeared. And he was staring directly at her. Sharon's hands trembled as she placed his drink down. She muttered something, an apology, maybe a "here you go," but her brain short-circuited when their eyes met. "Thanks, baby." The words slipped out. She froze. Time fractured. The room went silent in her head. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Edward's eyes darkened with something unreadable. Amusement, intrigue, possession. He leaned forward, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her chest. "Say it again, but slower." Sharon fled that night, quit her job with a text message, and vowed never to step foot in that building again. But you can't run from a man like Edward Allen. Because 2 days later, when she walked into Crimson Rose restaurant, desperate for work, he was waiting. This is the story of an accidental word that became a claim, a shelter, and the beginning of a love forged in darkness. Sharon Cooper had 3 rules for survival. 1. Never make eye contact. 2. Never draw attention. 3. Never, under any circumstances, get comfortable. For 4 months, those rules kept her alive. She worked the floor at Diamond Heights Lounge with mechanical precision, smile without warmth, serve without conversation, disappear into the background like wallpaper. The customers barely registered her existence, and that's exactly how she needed it. But tonight, her manager had other plans. "Sharon!" Gina's voice cut through the ambient jazz music. "VIP section. Now. Tara called in sick and we're drowning." Sharon's stomach plummeted. "I don't work VIP, Gina. You know that." "You do tonight." Gina thrust a tray of premium whiskey into her hands. "Table 7. Don't screw it up. Those men tip in hundreds." "Those men?" Sharon's hands trembled as she pushed through the velvet curtain separating the main floor from the VIP lounge. The lighting was dimmer here, more intimate. Leather booths lined the walls, occupied by men in expensive suits who spoke in low tones about things that made her skin crawl. And at the center of it all sat him, Edward Allen. She'd heard the name whispered in break rooms, seen it in newspaper headlines she tried to avoid. The mafia boss who controlled the city's underground with an iron fist. His reputation preceded him like thunder before lightning. Ruthless, calculating, untouchable. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp features that could have been carved from marble. Dark hair swept back from a face that revealed nothing, but his eyes, God, his eyes, tracked her movement the second she entered the room. Sharon focused on the tray. Don't look up. Don't engage. Serve and leave. She approached the table, her heart hammering so violently she thought everyone could hear it. "Your drinks, gentlemen," she said quietly, placing glasses with shaking hands. The men barely acknowledged her, all except Edward. He watched her with the intensity of a predator studying prey, not with hunger, but with curiosity, like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Sharon placed his glass in front of him, her throat dry. "Thanks, baby." The words escaped before her brain could stop them. Oh, God. Time fractured. The casual term of endearment, the one she'd used thoughtlessly 1,000 times in her old life, hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Sharon's eyes snapped to Edward's face. His expression shifted from neutral observation to something unreadable. The corners of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. The other men at the table went silent. Edward leaned forward slowly, his gaze pinning her in place. "What did you just call me?" His voice was low, smooth, and dangerous. Sharon's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her brain screamed contradictory commands. "Apologize! Run! Explain! Just move!" I didn't, I'm sorry," she stammered. "Say it again," Edward interrupted, his eyes never leaving hers. "What?" "That word you just called me." He tilted his head, studying her like a scientist examining a rare specimen. "Say it again, but slower." Sharon's legs turned to water. This was it. This was how she'd blown her cover, destroyed her safety, exposed herself. One stupid word and... "I can't. I need to." She backed away, the empty tray clutched to her chest like a shield. Sharon. Her fake name sounded different in his mouth. Possessive, knowing. How did he know her name? The badge. He read your badge. Yes? You can go." His tone shifted to something almost gentle. For now, Sharon didn't need to be told twice. She turned and fled, pushing through the curtain and nearly colliding with another server. Her hands shook so badly she had to set the tray down before she dropped it. "You okay?" Nina, one of the other waitresses, touched her shoulder. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I need to go home." Sharon's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. "Your shift isn't over. Tell Gina I'm sick. Tell her anything. I have to leave." Sharon grabbed her purse from her locker and fled into the night, not bothering to change out of her uniform. The November air bit through her thin blouse, but she welcomed the cold. It was real, grounding, proof she was still alive. She didn't see the black town car that pulled away from the curb 30 seconds after she left. She didn't notice the man in the driver's seat speaking into his phone. "She's heading east on 5th. Want me to follow?" And she definitely didn't hear Edward Allen's response. "No, I know where she lives. Let her run, for now." What just happened? Did Sharon's one word really catch the attention of the city's most dangerous man? And why did he let her go so easily? Sharon didn't sleep that night. She sat on her lumpy mattress with all the lights on, phone clutched in one hand, a kitchen knife in the other, as if either would protect her from what she'd just done. I called a mafia boss baby. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. She'd spent 4 months perfecting invisibility and destroyed it all with one careless word. By 3 a.m. she'd made a decision. She was done with Diamond Heights. Done with that part of town entirely. She sent Gina a text message. Family emergency. Can't come back. Sorry. And blocked the number before her manager could respond. Then she opened job search apps and started looking for anything far from Diamond Heights, far from VIP lounges, far from men in expensive suits who looked at her like she was a possession to be acquired. Her savings account mocked her. 300 $300 barely enough for next month's rent, let alone a fresh start. You can't run forever, a voice whispered in her head. Eventually, the money runs out. Eventually, someone finds you. Sharon pushed the thought away and kept scrolling. 3 days later, Sharon stood outside Crimson Rose, an upscale restaurant in a nicer part of the city. The ad promised competitive wages, flexible hours, and a supportive work environment. It was further from her apartment, which meant higher bus fare, but it was also 15 miles from Diamond Heights. 15 miles felt like safety. The manager, James Calloway, was a pleasant man in his 50s, with laugh lines around his eyes. He interviewed her in a corner booth, reviewing her fabricated resume with polite interest. "You've got solid experience," James said. "References look good. When can you start?" Relief flooded through her. "Tomorrow, if you need me." "Perfect. Let me just run this by the owner real quick. He likes to approve all new hires personally. Give me 5 minutes." Sharon nodded, trying not to show her impatience. She just wanted this to be over, wanted to start working, start rebuilding again. James disappeared into the back office. Sharon pulled out her phone to check the bus schedule for her route home. She was so focused on the screen that she didn't notice the office door opening again. She didn't see James's confused expression as someone else emerged. She didn't look up until a familiar voice spoke. "Hello, Sharon." Time stopped. She knew that voice. It had haunted her for 3 days. Sharon's head snapped up, and her heart dropped straight through the floor. Edward Allen stood in front of her, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. His hands were casually tucked into his pockets, his expression unreadable, except for the slight curve of his lips. Not quite a smile, but close. "You," Sharon couldn't form a complete sentence. "What are you doing here?" "I own Crimson Rose," Edward said simply. "Have for about 4 years. James handles the day-to-day, but I review all new hires." He tilted his head, studying her with that same predatory curiosity from the lounge. "Imagine my surprise when I saw your name on the application." Sharon's legs threatened to give out. "This is a mistake. I should go. Sit down." "Sharon." It wasn't a request. She sank back onto the booth bench, her body obeying even as her mind screamed at her to run. Edward slid into the seat across from her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody that made her dizzy. "You ran from Diamond Heights," he said conversationally. "Quit via text message. Very unprofessional." "I had to leave? Because of me?" Sharon's silence was enough. Edward leaned back, one arm draped casually along the top of the booth. "Let me make something clear. You're not in danger from me. You never were." "You're a—" Sharon stopped herself. "A mafia boss?" Edward's lips quirked. "Yes, I'm also a businessman who owns 17 restaurants, 6 nightclubs, and a charity foundation that feeds homeless veterans. I'm complex." He paused. "So are you. You don't know anything about me. I know you're running from something. I know Sharon Cooper didn't exist 6 months ago. No credit history, no social media, no paper trail before August." His eyes softened fractionally. "I know fear when I see it, Sharon. And you're terrified." Her throat tightened. "If you know all that, why am I here?" "Because I'm offering you the job." Sharon blinked. "What?" "You need work. I need a server. James says you're qualified. So, you're hired." Edward pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. "Standard pay is $15 an hour plus tips. We'll start you on the dinner shift, 5 to midnight, 5 days a week. You pick the days off." This had to be a trap. Men like Edward Allen didn't just help people. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You work, you get paid, you go home." He paused. "Though I will ask one thing." "Here it comes." "Don't run again," Edward said quietly. "Whatever you're afraid of, it's not me. And maybe, eventually, you'll realize that." Sharon stared at him, searching for deception, manipulation, control. All the things she'd learned to recognize. But Edward's expression was surprisingly open, almost earnest. "Why do you care?" she whispered. Edward was silent for a long moment. Then, "Someone helped me once, when I needed it most. Maybe I'm just returning the favor." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Shift starts at 5 tomorrow. James will get you set up. Oh, and Sharon?" She looked up. "Next time you want to call me baby," his smile was devastating, "make sure you mean it." He walked away, leaving Sharon sitting in stunned silence. Did Sharon just walk into another trap? Or is Edward Allen actually offering her a lifeline? And what did he mean by next time? Sharon almost didn't show up. She stood outside Crimson Rose at 4:55 p.m., watching through the windows as servers moved efficiently between tables, the warm lighting making everything look deceptively safe. "This is insane. You should turn around right now." But where would she go? She'd already burned her bridge at Diamond Heights. Her savings were evaporating. And, God help her, some small, stupid part of her believed Edward when he said she wasn't in danger. Maybe it was the exhaustion talking. Maybe she was so tired of running that even a beautiful cage felt like rest. She pushed through the doors. James greeted her with a warm smile. "Sharon, perfect timing." "Let me introduce you to Teresa. She'll show you the ropes tonight." Teresa Gomez was a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and hands that had clearly seen decades of service work. She looked Sharon up and down with the practiced assessment of someone who'd trained 1,000 servers. "First night?" Teresa asked. "Yeah. You'll do fine. Food comes out fast, the kitchen's good about fixing mistakes, and customers here are mostly decent. Just smile, be efficient, and don't flirt with anyone's husband." She paused. "Also, Mr. Allen sometimes stops by, but he keeps to his office upstairs." "You probably won't even see him." Sharon's stomach flipped. "He's here tonight?" "Most nights. He says he likes to keep his finger on the pulse or whatever." Teresa handed Sharon an apron and order pad. "Ready?" "No." "Yes." The first 2 hours passed in a blur. Sharon fell into the familiar rhythm of table service. Take orders, deliver food, refill drinks, smile, repeat. The customers were generous tippers, and the kitchen staff was friendly. For the first time in months, Sharon felt something close to normal until table 12. The man was in his 40s, loud, already drunk despite it being barely past 7. When Sharon approached to take his order, he grabbed her wrist. "Well, aren't you a pretty thing?" he slurred. Sharon's vision tunneled. Her pulse spiked. The room tilted. Derek's hands on her wrists. His voice, "Don't pull away from me, Sharon. You know what happens when you pull away." "Let go," Sharon whispered, but her voice sounded far away. "Come on, sweetheart, just being friendly." "I said, let go." The room went silent. Sharon wrenched her arm free, stumbling backward into another server. Her breathing came in short, panicked gasps. The walls closed in. "Not here. Not now. Please, not now." She fled toward the back, pushing through the kitchen doors and into the storage hallway. Her hands shook violently. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. "Breathe. Just breathe. You're safe. You're—" "Sharon!" She spun around, back pressed against the wall. Edward stood at the end of the hallway, his expression dark with concern. He didn't approach, just stayed where he was, hands visible, non-threatening. "Can I come closer?" His voice was gentle. Sharon nodded, not trusting her voice. Edward approached slowly, like she was a wounded animal. When he was a few feet away, he crouched down to her eye level. "You're having a panic attack," he said calmly. "It's going to pass. Just focus on my voice, okay? Breathe in for 4 counts." Sharon tried, her chest hitching. "That's good. Hold for 4. Now out for 4. She followed his instructions, her breathing gradually slowing. The black spots receded. The walls stopped closing in. When she could finally speak, her voice was hoarse. "The man at table 12. Victor's handling it," Edward said. "He'll never set foot in here again." Sharon's eyes widened. "You didn't kill him?" "No." Edward's lips twitched. "Just had him escorted out with a lifetime ban, and a very clear understanding of what happens if he ever touches another woman like that." Tears burned Sharon's eyes. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lost it like that." "Sharon." Edward reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently grasped her hands. His touch was warm, grounding. "You have nothing to apologize for. He assaulted you. Your response was valid." "I can't do this," she whispered. "I thought I could, but I can't." "Yes, you can." Edward's thumbs brushed over her knuckles. "Whatever happened to you before, whoever hurt you, they made you believe you're broken. But you're not. You're surviving. And survival is the bravest thing a person can do." Sharon looked into his eyes and saw something unexpected. Understanding. Like he knew exactly what it felt like to barely hold yourself together. "Why are you being nice to me?" she asked. Edward was quiet for a moment. "Because someone should be. And because—" He hesitated, seemingly debating whether to continue. "Because when you called me baby that night, something in me woke up. Something I thought died a long time ago." Sharon's breath caught. "What?" "Hope," Edward said simply. "You made me feel hopeful, Sharon, and I haven't felt that in years." Before she could respond, Teresa appeared at the end of the hallway. "Sharon, you okay, honey?" Edward stood smoothly, releasing Sharon's hands. "She's fine. Take the rest of the night off, Sharon. Full pay." "I can work." "I know you can, but you don't have to." He glanced at Teresa. "Make sure she gets home safe. Call a car service. Charge it to the restaurant." Teresa nodded, clearly not questioning her boss. Edward looked at Sharon one last time. "You're stronger than you think. Tomorrow will be easier." He walked away, leaving Sharon trembling in the hallway. Not from fear this time, but from the terrifying realization that she was starting to trust him. Is Sharon falling for the one man she should fear most? And what secrets is Edward hiding behind his protective facade? 3 weeks passed. Sharon settled into a routine at Crimson Rose. Teresa became her anchor, James became her cheerleader, and gradually the panic attacks became less frequent. She still flinched at sudden movements and avoided certain tables, but she was functioning. And Edward? Edward was always there. Not hovering, he was too smart for that. But present. He'd appear at the end of her shift to ask how her night went. He'd leave coffee in the break room with her name on it. Once, when she mentioned her apartment's heating was broken, a repairman showed up the next day. No charge, no explanation, though Sharon knew exactly who'd sent him. It should have scared her. This level of attention from a man like Edward Allen should have sent her running, but it didn't, because Edward never asked for anything in return, never made her feel trapped, never used his power to control her, only to protect her. And slowly, terrifyingly, Sharon started to feel safe. It was a quiet Tuesday night when everything shifted. Sharon was wiping down tables after close when she heard footsteps behind her. "You're working late." Edward's voice was warm in the dim lighting. Sharon turned, finding him leaning against the bar in a more casual outfit, dark jeans and a black button-down. Sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked younger like this, less untouchable. "Just finishing up," she said. "You?" "Paperwork. The glamorous life of a restaurateur." He smiled slightly. "Want a drink?" "I make a decent old-fashioned." Sharon knew she should say no, should maintain professional distance, should remember who he was and what he was capable of. "Okay," she heard herself say. Edward moved behind the bar with practiced ease, pulling bottles and mixing with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Sharon perched on a bar stool, watching him work. "How'd you end up owning restaurants?" she asked. "Started as a money-laundering front, if I'm being honest." Edward's bluntness caught her off guard. "Bought my first place at 25. Figured out I actually liked the business. Turns out I have a talent for hospitality. Ironic, considering my other profession." He slid the drink across to her. Sharon took a sip, tasting whiskey, bitters, and orange. "This is really good." "Told you." Edward poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon. "Neat. Your turn. How'd you end up in restaurants?" Sharon's fingers tightened on her glass. "It's not an interesting story." "I doubt that." She took another sip, letting the alcohol warm her throat. "I needed work that didn't require extensive background checks. Restaurants ask fewer questions." "Because you're hiding." It wasn't a question. Sharon nodded slowly. "From who?" Edward's voice was careful, like he was approaching a trapped animal. Sharon had never told anyone, not Nina, not Teresa, not the therapist she'd seen twice before running out of insurance, but something about the quiet restaurant, the late hour, and the man sitting across from her made the truth claw its way up her throat. "My ex-fiancé," she whispered. "Derek Mitchell." Edward went very still. "He hurt you?" Again, not a question. Sharon's voice cracked. "At first, it was small things. Checking my phone, wanting to know where I was. I thought it was sweet, that he cared so much." She laughed bitterly. "I was so stupid." "You weren't stupid. He was manipulative." It escalated. He isolated me from friends, made me quit my job, convinced me I needed him to survive. Sharon stared at her glass. When I tried to leave the first time, he put me in the hospital, broke 3 ribs and my wrist, told the doctors I fell down the stairs. Edward's knuckles went white around his glass. I stayed for another year after that, because I believed him when he said sorry, when he said he'd change, when he said no one else would ever want me. Tears spilled down Sharon's cheeks. The second time I tried to leave, he almost killed me. I woke up in the ICU with a fractured skull and no memory of 3 days. Sharon, I disappeared the day I was discharged, took what cash I had, got on a bus, and never looked back. She finally met Edward's eyes. That's who I'm running from. That's why I can't be Sharon Cooper for real. Because if he finds me, he'll finish what he started. The silence stretched between them. Then Edward stood, walked around the bar, and did something Sharon never expected. He pulled her into his arms, not possessively, not sexually, just held her. Sharon broke. 4 months of holding herself together shattered in Edward's embrace. She sobbed into his chest while he held her steady, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other pressed firmly against her spine. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "I've got you, Sharon. You're safe. I'm sorry," she gasped between sobs. "Don't apologize. Not for this. Never for this." They stayed like that until Sharon's tears slowed, until her breathing evened, until she felt strong enough to pull back. Edward's eyes were dark with something Sharon couldn't quite name. "Listen to me very carefully. Derek Mitchell will never touch you again. Do you understand? Edward, if he comes within 100 miles of you, I will know, and I will end him." His voice was utterly calm, which somehow made the promise more terrifying. "Not because you're my employee, not because I think I own you, but because no one gets to hurt you and keep breathing." Sharon's heart hammered. "That's terrifying? Probably. But it's the truth." Edward cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "You called me baby once, Sharon, like I was something soft, something safe. No one's ever looked at me like that. And he swallowed hard. "I want to be that for you, if you'll let me." Sharon's world tilted on its axis. This was insane. He was a mafia boss. She was a woman with a target on her back. This couldn't work. This shouldn't work. But when she looked into Edward's eyes, she saw the same thing she felt. 2 broken people recognizing each other's wounds. "What if I'm too broken?" she whispered. "Then we'll be broken together." Edward's smile was soft, almost shy. "What do you say, Sharon? Will you let me protect you?" She should say no. She should run. She should— "Yes," Sharon breathed. Edward's eyes flared with something fierce and tender all at once, and when he leaned in, giving her every opportunity to pull away, Sharon closed the distance instead. The kiss was gentle, questioning, reverent, like he was afraid she'd shatter. When they finally pulled apart, Edward rested his forehead against hers. "Baby," Sharon whispered, testing the word. Edward's breath hitched. "Say it again." "Baby." Again, but slower. Sharon smiled, despite everything. "Baby." "Perfect," Edward murmured, and kissed her once more. Sharon just opened her heart to the most dangerous man in the city. But is Edward's protection enough to keep her past from destroying their future? The next 2 weeks felt like a dream. Edward was careful with Sharon, never pushing, never demanding, always giving her space to choose. But the shift between them was undeniable. He'd find reasons to touch her, a hand on the small of her back, fingers brushing hers when he handed her coffee, his thumb tracing her cheekbone when he thought she wasn't paying attention. Sharon had never felt so seen, so valued, so safe. She should have known it couldn't last. It was 2:17 a.m. when her phone rang. Sharon was dead asleep in her apartment, dreaming of nothing in particular, when the shrill ringtone pierced the darkness. She jolted awake, heart pounding, and grabbed the phone without looking at the screen. "Hello?" Her voice was thick with sleep, breathing, just breathing on the other end. Sharon's blood turned to ice. "Who is this? Did you really think you could hide from me, Sharon?" Derek. The world stopped. Her lungs forgot how to work. Her vision tunneled to a pinpoint. "How?" she choked out. "Did you think I wouldn't find you?" Derek's voice was exactly as she remembered. Smooth, controlled, poisonous. "I've been looking for months, baby. Hired the best private investigators money can buy. And now—" He laughed, the sound making bile rise in her throat. "Now I know exactly where you are." "You're lying." "Apartment 4C, Riverside Complex. You take the number 7 bus to work at Crimson Rose Restaurant. You get coffee at the corner shop every Sunday." He paused, letting each detail sink in like a knife. "You really should close your curtains at night, Sharon. Anyone could be watching." Sharon's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. "I'm coming for you," Derek continued conversationally. "And this time, you won't wake up in a hospital. This time, I'll make sure you never leave me again." The line went dead. Sharon sat frozen in her bed, phone still pressed to her ear, the dial tone buzzing in the darkness. "He found you. He knows where you are. He's coming." Her body moved on autopilot. She grabbed her go-bag from under the bed, the one she'd packed 4 months ago and never unpacked. Threw in her phone charger, the small amount of cash she kept hidden, her fake ID. She was lacing up her sneakers, preparing to disappear into the night, when another thought crashed through the panic. Edward. Sharon stared at her phone. Edward had given her his personal number weeks ago, told her to call any time, day or night, no matter what. But if she called him, if she pulled him into this, Derek might target him too. And despite everything, Sharon couldn't stomach the thought of Edward getting hurt because of her. Her thumb hovered over his contact. "Don't be stupid. Run. Disappear. Start over somewhere new." The phone rang in her hand, making her yelp. "Edward." Sharon answered with shaking hands. "Hello? Sharon." Edward's voice was tense. "Where are you? How did you—" "I have monitoring on your apartment. Someone called you from an unknown number 2 minutes ago. Your heart rate spiked. What happened?" Of course he was monitoring her. Of course. Sharon should have been angry. Instead, she felt overwhelming relief. "Derek found me," she whispered. "He called. He knows where I live, where I work, everything. Edward, he said he's coming. Stay exactly where you are. I'm 10 minutes away." Edward's voice was steel. "Do you hear me, Sharon? Don't leave that apartment." "I'm coming to you." "But do not leave." A pause. "Please, baby, trust me." The endearment broke something loose in her chest. "Okay," Sharon breathed. "Okay. I'll be there soon. Keep the door locked. Don't answer for anyone but me." The line disconnected. Sharon sat on her bed, go bag at her feet, and waited. Every creak of the building made her jump. Every sound outside her window sent her heart racing. He's watching. Derek's watching right now. 6 minutes later, a knock at her door made her nearly scream. "Sharon, it's me!" Edward. She flew to the door, checked the peephole. Yes, it was him, and yanked it open. Edward stood in the hallway wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair mussed like he'd dressed in 30 seconds. Behind him were 2 large men in dark suits, one of whom Sharon recognized as Victor, Edward's head of security. Edward's eyes swept over her, taking in the go-bag, her shoes, the mute panic in her expression. His jaw tightened. "May I come in?" Sharon nodded, stepping aside. Edward entered, followed by Victor. The other man stayed in the hallway, taking up a guard position. "Tell me everything," Edward said quietly. Sharon did. Every word Derek said, every threat, every detail he knew about her life. By the time she finished, Edward's expression was murderous. "Victor," he said without looking away from Sharon, "find Derek Mitchell. I want his location within the hour." "Sir, within the hour." Edward's voice could have cut glass. "Use every resource we have. Call in favors. I don't care what it costs." Victor nodded and stepped into the hallway, already on his phone. Edward moved toward Sharon, his hands gentle as they framed her face. "Look at me." She did. "He's dead," Edward said simply. "Derek Mitchell is already dead. He just doesn't know it yet." "Edward, you can't—" "I can. I will." His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. "He threatened you. He hurt you. He forfeited his right to keep breathing the moment he put hands on you the first time." Tears spilled down Sharon's face. "This is too much. I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." Edward pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling her head. "I told you I'd protect you, Sharon. I meant it." "What if he hurts you?" Edward laughed, a dark, humorless sound. "Baby, I'm the mafia boss. The question isn't if he can hurt me. The question is how slowly I'm going to make him suffer for what he did to you." Sharon should have been horrified, should have been appalled by the casual promise of violence. Instead, for the first time since Derek's call, she felt safe. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now you pack a bag. A real one this time. You're staying at my penthouse until this is handled. Victor will post guards outside. You don't go anywhere alone." He pulled back to look at her. "And when we find Derek, and we will find him, you get to choose." "Choose what?" Edward's eyes were dark and serious. "Whether you want him arrested and thrown in prison, or whether you want me to make sure he never threatens anyone again." The choice hung between them, heavy with implications. Sharon thought about the hospital visits, the fear, the years of therapy she'd need, the way she still flinched at raised voices and couldn't sleep without checking the locks 3 times. She thought about every woman Derek might hurt in the future if he was still breathing. "I want closure," Sharon said quietly. "I want to look him in the eyes one more time without being afraid." "Then that's what you'll get." Edward kissed her forehead. "Pack your things, baby. Let's get you somewhere safe." Derek made a fatal mistake. He went after someone under Edward Allen's protection. But what will Sharon do when she finally faces the monster from her past? Edward's penthouse was like something from a movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Furniture that probably cost more than Sharon's entire childhood home. And security that would make Fort Knox jealous. Sharon barely noticed. She spent the first day pacing, jumping at every sound, unable to eat or sleep. Edward stayed close, working from home, always within reach, but never crowding her. On the second day, Victor came to the penthouse with news. Sharon sat on Edward's leather couch, wrapped in one of his sweaters that smelled like him. Cedar and safety. Edward sat beside her, one arm draped protectively around her shoulders. Victor stood across from them, tablet in hand. "We found him." Sharon's breath caught. "Where?" "Renting a room at the Riverside Motel, 3 blocks from your old apartment. He's been there for 4 days." Victor swiped his tablet, showing surveillance photos. "We've had eyes on him since last night. He's alone. No backup, no weapons we've detected." Edward studied the photos with cold precision. "He's watching her building." "Yes, sir. Seems to be waiting for her to come home." Sharon's stomach turned. Derek had been watching her apartment, waiting for her like a predator at a watering hole. "What's the plan?" Edward asked. Victor glanced at Sharon, then back to Edward. "We could grab him off the street, take him to the warehouse. Make it quick." "No." Sharon's voice was stronger than she expected. Both men looked at her. "I want to be there." "Sharon," Edward started. "He made me feel powerless for years, Edward. I need to see that he can't hurt me anymore. I need to look him in the eyes and know I survived him." She turned to Edward, pleading, "Please." Edward was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Victor, set it up. But I want 8 men on site, armed. She doesn't get within reach of him until he's secured. Understood?" Victor nodded. "When?" "Tonight." Edward looked at Sharon. "If you're sure." Sharon thought about all the nightmares, all the panic attacks, all the times she'd looked over her shoulder expecting Derek's face. "I'm sure." The warehouse was exactly what Sharon expected from a mafia operation. Empty, industrial, isolated. The kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Victor's men brought Derek in with a hood over his head, hands zip-tied behind his back. They shoved him into a chair in the center of the space and secured him there. Sharon stood in the shadows with Edward, her hand clutched in his. "Last chance to change your mind," Edward murmured. Sharon squeezed his hand. "I'm not changing my mind." Edward nodded and stepped forward into the light. He gestured, and one of his men yanked the hood off Derek's head. Sharon's ex-fiancé blinked in the harsh fluorescent lighting, disoriented. He was exactly as she remembered, handsome in a conventional way, clean-cut, the kind of man who looked trustworthy to strangers, the kind of man who hid monsters behind a charming smile. Derek's eyes adjusted. He saw Edward first, then the men surrounding him. Confusion flickered across his face. "What the hell? Where am I? Who are you people?" "My name is Edward Allen," Edward said calmly, "and you made a very serious mistake." Recognition flashed across Derek's face. "You're the Mafia boss. The one who—" His eyes widened. "She's with you. Sharon's with you." "She's under my protection," Edward corrected. "Which means you signed your death warrant the moment you called her." Derek's face paled, but he recovered quickly. The same manipulation Sharon remembered. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I just wanted to talk to my fiancée." "She was never your fiancée. She was your victim." "That's not—" "She's confused. She needs help. The only person who needs help," a new voice said from the shadows, "is you." Sharon stepped into the light. Derek's face went through a series of expressions: shock, joy, possession, anger. before settling on the mask of concern Sharon knew too well. "Sharon! Baby, thank God. These men kidnapped me. We need to call the police." "Stop," Sharon said quietly. Derek's mouth snapped shut, confusion crossing his features. This wasn't the Sharon he remembered, the one who apologized for his violence, who shrank under his gaze, who believed his lies. "You put me in the hospital twice," Sharon said, her voice steady. "You broke my ribs, my wrist, fractured my skull. You isolated me from everyone who cared about me. You made me believe I deserved it. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to own me." Sharon took a step closer, and Derek actually flinched, a small, involuntary movement that sent satisfaction through her. "But I got away. I rebuilt my life, and I found someone who actually knows what protection means." Derek's eyes flicked to Edward, pure hatred burning there. "Him? He's a criminal. He's a better man than you'll ever be," Sharon said, "because he's never once made me afraid. He's never once hurt me. He's never once made me feel small." She smiled, though tears streaked her face. "You wanted to find me, Derek? Congratulations! You found me, and now you get to see exactly what happens to men who hurt me." Derek's confidence finally cracked. "Sharon, please, I'm sorry. I'll get help. I'll change. You said that before. Right before you put me in the ICU." Sharon looked at Edward. "I'm done." Edward stepped forward, pulling a gun from his waistband with practiced ease. He chambered around, the sound echoing through the warehouse. Derek's eyes went wide. "Wait, no, you can't. Sharon, tell him you forgive me. Tell him." "I don't forgive you," Sharon said. "I just don't want to see you anymore." She turned and walked into the shadows, back to Victor. The last thing she heard before Victor led her outside was Derek screaming her name. Then a single gunshot. Silence. Sharon stood in the cool night air, breathing deeply. Victor stood a respectful distance away, giving her space. She waited. 5 minutes later, Edward emerged from the warehouse, holstering his gun. His eyes found hers immediately, searching for what? Regret? Horror? Disgust? Sharon walked to him and wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her face against his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Edward's arms came around her, strong and sure. "Are you okay?" "I don't know yet," Sharon admitted. "But I'm free. For the first time in years, I'm actually free." They stood like that for a long moment, before Edward pulled back to look at her. "Let's go home." "Home," Sharon repeated. The word felt different now. "Where's home?" Edward's smile was soft. "Wherever you want it to be." Sharon thought about her tiny apartment with its broken heating. Then she thought about Edward's penthouse, with its safety and warmth, and the man who'd just killed for her. "Take me to your place," she said. Edward kissed her forehead. "Always." Derek Mitchell's reign of terror is over. But can Sharon truly move forward? And what happens when a woman shaped by trauma falls in love with a man built from violence? 3 days after Derek's death, Sharon stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Edward's penthouse, watching the city wake up. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Derek's face, not in terror, but in all the years before. The charming smile that had fooled her, the first time he raised his voice, the first time he grabbed her wrist too tight, the last time she thought she was going to die. "You're up early," Edward's voice came from behind her. Sharon turned. He was barefoot in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair mussed, looking more human than Mafia boss. He held 2 cups of coffee. Couldn't sleep, she admitted. Edward handed her a cup, made exactly how she liked it, because, of course, he'd memorized that detail. He stood beside her at the window, not touching, just present. Second-guessing? He asked quietly. No. Sharon surprised herself with certainty. I don't regret what happened to Derek. I don't know what happens now. What do you mean? Sharon gestured at the penthouse, the view, the luxury. This isn't my world, Edward. I'm a waitress running from my past. She laughed without humor. You're a king in a world I don't understand. You think I'm going to get bored of you? Edward's voice was sharp. Throw you aside now that the threat is gone? Aren't you? Edward set his coffee down with deliberate care and turned to face her fully. Look at me. Sharon did. I didn't kill Derek to possess you, Sharon. I killed him to free you. Those are very different things. He stepped closer, his hands gentle on her shoulders. I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. You can leave. Sharon's breath caught. What? Right now. Today. I'll give you money. Enough to start anywhere in the world. New identity, new life, complete protection from a distance. You'll never have to see me again. His jaw tightened. You owe me nothing. Not gratitude, not loyalty, and definitely not your body or your heart. Tears burned Sharon's eyes. You'd just let me go? I'd hate it. It would destroy me. But yes. Edward's thumb brushed her cheek. Because loving someone means wanting them to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include you. Loving? Sharon's voice broke on the word. Edward smiled sadly. I fell in love with you the moment you called me baby, like I was something soft, worth protecting. I fell deeper when you survived your panic attack with such grace. I fell completely when you stood in that warehouse and took your power back. He cupped her face. I love you, Sharon Cooper. Whatever your real name is. I love your strength, your vulnerability, your refusal to stay broken. And because I love you, I'm giving you a choice. Sharon's world tilted. Edward, option 1, leave, start fresh. I'll make sure you're safe and provided for. We never see each other again. He swallowed hard. Option 2, stay. Not as my possession or my trophy, but as my partner. We figure this out together. The trauma, the violence, the impossibility of us. We build something real. What if I'm too damaged? Sharon whispered. Then we're damaged together. What do you say, baby? Which do you choose? Sharon looked at this man, this dangerous, powerful, impossible man who'd just offered her freedom instead of chains. Who'd killed for her, yes, but who'd also held her through panic attacks, made her coffee, and given her the one thing Derek never had, a choice. She thought about running, about disappearing into a new life where no one knew her past or her scars. Then she thought about never seeing Edward again, never hearing him call her baby in that gravelly voice, never feeling safe the way she did in his arms. The choice was easier than it should have been. I'm not leaving, Sharon said. Edward's eyes flashed with hope and disbelief. You're sure? I've been running for so long, Edward. I'm tired. She set her coffee down and placed her hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat thunder beneath her palms. I don't want to run from you. I don't want to run from this. I want, she swallowed. I want to try building something that isn't based on fear for once. It won't be easy, Edward warned. My world is complicated. Dangerous. Your world killed the man who almost killed me, Sharon countered. Your world gave me my life back. I think I can handle complicated situations. Edward's laugh was shaky. What did I do to deserve you? Probably terrible things, Sharon said with a small smile. But you're trying to be better, and that's enough for me. Edward pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was something precious. I love you, he murmured into her hair. God, Sharon, I love you so much. I love you too, Sharon said, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. My name isn't Sharon, by the way. It's… Don't tell me yet. Edward pulled back to look at her. When you're ready, when you feel safe enough to be your whole self with me, that's when you can tell me. Sharon's eyes filled with tears. How are you real? I ask myself the same thing about you. Edward kissed her forehead, then her nose, then brushed his lips against hers. Say it one more time. Sharon knew exactly what he meant. She smiled through her tears. Baby. Again, but slower. Baby, she whispered against his lips. Edward kissed her properly then, deep and claiming and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Forever, he said. Forever, Sharon agreed, and for the first time in years, she believed in forever again. Sharon chose love over fear, Edward over freedom. But what does forever look like when it's built on violence and trauma? 6 months later. Sharon, no, Rachel. That was her real name, the one she'd finally shared with Edward 3 months ago, stood in the kitchen of their shared penthouse, attempting to make dinner. Baby, I think the pasta is staging a rebellion, Edward's voice came from behind her. Rachel looked at the pot boiling over and laughed. Shit, I'm terrible at this. Edward moved around her with practiced ease, adjusting the heat and rescuing the pasta, while Rachel leaned against the counter and watched. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing the tattoos he usually kept hidden, including a new one on his left forearm. A small script that read, Baby. Rachel touched it gently, still marveling that this man had permanently marked himself with her accidental endearment. Regret it yet? She asked. Never. Edward caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Though I'm starting to regret letting you cook unsupervised. Hey, I'm getting better. You burned water last week. That was one time, Edward laughed, that genuine, unguarded sound that still made Rachel's heart skip. He pulled her against him, swaying slightly to music only they could hear. Life wasn't perfect. Rachel still had nightmares, still flinched at unexpected touches from anyone but Edward, still went to therapy twice a week to work through years of trauma. But she was healing. Edward had his own demons, the weight of his empire, the violence of his work, the blood on his hands that no amount of washing would remove. Some nights, Rachel woke to find him sitting at the window, staring at the city with haunted eyes. But he was trying. They'd found a rhythm, two broken people learning to be whole together. Rachel worked at Crimson Rose 3 nights a week, not because she needed the money, but because she needed the normalcy. Edward was teaching her about his business, the legitimate parts, but also the darker edges, because he refused to lie to her. Victor called, Edward said, his chin resting on top of her head. The Castellanos want to meet next week. Rachel knew that name, a rival crime family trying to establish territory in Edward's city. Is it going to be a problem? Probably, but nothing I can't handle. He pulled back to look at her. Unless you want me to walk away from all of this. I will, if you ask. Rachel knew he meant it. Edward would burn down his empire if she asked him to, but she also knew it wasn't that simple. You didn't just walk away from the Mafia. I would never ask you to be someone you're not, she said. Besides, I kind of like being with a dangerous man. Edward's smile was wicked. Oh, really? Rachel ran her hands up his chest. Something about the whole, I'll kill anyone who looks at you wrong thing is surprisingly hot. Is that so? Edward's hands slipped under her shirt, warm against her skin. And here I thought you were with me for my sparkling personality. That too. Rachel kissed him, soft and lingering. Also, the penthouse. Definitely the penthouse. Mercenary. You love it. I love you, Edward corrected, his expression turning serious. Every day, Rachel. Every single day I wake up grateful you chose me. Rachel's eyes stung with happy tears. Right back at you, baby. Edward's eyes darkened at the word. Even after 6 months, it still affected him. Say it again. Baby. Slower. Baby, Rachel whispered, drawing out the syllables. Edward groaned. Forget dinner, bedroom, now. Rachel laughed as he scooped her up, the pasta forgotten on the stove. As Edward carried her down the hallway, she caught sight of their reflection in a mirror. 2 people who'd survived hell and found each other in the aftermath. It wasn't a fairy tale romance. There was no and they lived happily ever after, because real life didn't work that way. There would be hard days ahead, challenges, setbacks, moments when the trauma threatened to pull them under. But they had each other. They had trust. They had love built on honesty and blood, and the kind of fierce devotion that only comes from truly seeing someone's darkness and choosing them anyway. Rachel had stopped running. Edward had stopped pretending he didn't feel. And together, they were building something beautiful out of their broken pieces. I love you, Rachel said as Edward laid her gently on their bed. I love you more, Edward countered, hovering over her. Impossible. Watch me prove it. And he did, with his hands, his mouth, his body, and the whispered promises of a man who'd found his salvation in a woman who accidentally called him baby and changed everything. Later, as they lay tangled together in the sheets, Rachel traced patterns on Edward's chest. What are you thinking? He asked. That I am glad I walked into Diamond Heights that night. That I'm glad I called you baby. That I'm glad you found me again. She propped herself up to look at him. I'm glad for all of it, Edward, even the hard parts, because they led me here, to you. Edward's hand cupped her cheek. You saved me. You know that? I was drowning in violence and emptiness before you. You gave me something to fight for beyond territory and power. What's that? A future, Edward said simply. One where I get to wake up next to you every morning, where I get to make you coffee and hold you through nightmares and watch you become the incredible woman you were always meant to be. He kissed her softly. You gave me hope, Rachel, and hope is the most dangerous weapon of all. Rachel smiled against his lips. Then let's be dangerous together. Forever? Forever, baby. And as the city lights glittered beyond their windows, 2 survivors held each other close and chose, every single day, to keep choosing each other. Because that's what love was. Not a fairy tale ending, but a daily decision to stay, to fight, to build something beautiful from the ruins. Sharon Cooper had died in that warehouse along with Derek Mitchell, but Rachel had been reborn in Edward Allen's arms. And that was the beginning of everything. Did you love this story? Smash that subscribe button for more heart-pounding mafia romance. Drop A in the comments if you believe in second chances and love born from darkness. What should Edward and Rachel's next adventure be? Let us know below.